All right guys, second demo of the day. Hopefully for you guys tuning into this week's tutorial, we have Yoshi here with us. We're gonna be doing a dope haircut. But before I get into the name of this haircut, we're gonna jump into the breakdown. Cause for me right now, I don't know exactly what the name of this haircut is gonna be yet, but we're gonna try to give Yoshi the best look possible for the look that he's coming with. So let's get into the breakdown. What I noticed about Yoshi's hair is that he came in with curly hair, but the minute I start brushing it out, it's actually quite wavy. This means that he has really good movement coming in through some of these areas. So I think the sideburns, right? What he has now, leaving that length actually complements this like lived in, kind of like this grungy look that he has. But right now, what's not working about all that is the weight that's sitting everywhere else. You notice the weight is just way too heavy. What do we notice about the fringe? His fringe actually lays nicely, but this right side here, it likes to bounce up slightly. See that? A little bit more reactive. So I know one thing is that the bounciness of this right side, we need to keep a little bit more lengthened. Going with like a crop length or something too short is just gonna make his hair react and it's just gonna kind of frizz out everywhere. The last thing that I noticed is that I do like the length down here, but I think the weight through the middle is just way too heavy. So I think what I'm gonna go with is a more of a mod shaggy look. Okay, so the haircut's gonna be called, you know, more of a mod with a hybrid of a shag. But we're gonna just go ahead and reshape all the areas that Yoshi doesn't need, and we're gonna go ahead and keep all the areas that actually complements his current look. So let's talk about the looks that naturally complement his look before we get into the shape of the breakdown. I like the length at the bottom, right? Can we agree? Length at the bottom is nice. So this is somewhere that we're gonna actually keep in Yoshi's look. Now the second thing is the sideburns. I like the length of his sideburns, it's not too long, but all of this weight is just too heavy. Last thing is, I don't love the length in the bangs, but by going too short, his hair's just gonna bounce. So what are the three areas that we need to actually keep in this haircut? The nape, the sideburns, and the fringe. We can't go too short in the fringe, we need to keep the length on the sideburns, and we need to keep the length in the nape. Okay, so I have to be mindful of those three areas as I cut. Now, with that being said, let's get right into the breakdown of Yoshi's head shape and facial structure. So I'm gonna go ahead and feel his head shape, right? And the first thing is immediately parietal ridge. There's a very small dip, okay? It's not wide, but it's very small. So I need to have a little bit of this buildup of weight. Crown is nice and round. Nape doesn't dip in too much, so he has a very nice head shape in the back as well. So we're left with a pretty solid head shape. So the next thing we need to see is the shape of Yoshi's face. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna just go ahead and see what type of hairline we're working with and what kind of face shape we're working with. As you guys can see, okay, Yoshi has pretty stronger facial features, and I feel like opening up something higher than the eyebrows would actually complement his look very well. Hiding everything underneath, you notice it covers up too much of his face, and actually exposing a little bit of that brings his face shape out a lot more. Now the second thing I noticed is his cheekbones sink in deeper than his jawline. So we have a pretty wider jaw, okay? He has a square jaw and he has slimmer cheekbones. What does that mean? A lot of emphasis actually goes down to the bottom of his face right here, right? So the shape up top can't be too wide, but it also can't be too narrow. So we need to keep the shape matching what? Jawline, exactly. So the shape of his haircut from the front needs to match his jawline, okay? Very simple breakdown, but we also can't have it sit slimmer than his jawline, because then it's just gonna match his cheekbones and it's gonna make his jawline protrude. Okay, make sense? So that's the shape that we need to match, and that's the buildup of weight that we need to create from the sides. All right guys, with that being said, let's get right into sectioning. So with this haircut, it's obviously a longer haircut. So what do I know immediately? A longer haircut where all the length needs to be kept. What do I know, guys? Boom, layers. So I know this is a longer haircut where a lot of this length needs to be kept, but the weight needs to go. We're gonna go ahead and do a lot of layers. All right, the breakdown of this haircut for sectioning is gonna be a little bit more intricate than usual, so take a close look at what I do. So we're gonna start in the back, which is the cowlick, and same thing, very simply, we're gonna take our radial section, going from the right side here, boom. Okay, brush everything forward. Okay, and you'll see if the hair doesn't wanna go a certain way, it will react negatively. On the right side here, go from the same cowlick line and boom, draw it all the way to behind the ear, maximum tension, okay, and we bring it back. Now I'm gonna go ahead and same thing, isolate parietal ridge into what? Corner of the hairline, so boom. Okay, round this into corner. I'm gonna do the same thing on this other side here. Round this into the corner. Okay, and it's not gonna end here. Watch what I do now. What do I know about his hairline? What does his hairline naturally do? It jumps, right? So what do we need to keep in the front? Length and weight. We need to keep length and weight. And how are we gonna keep weight? Okay, cutting at the line. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and split this in half. And I'm gonna go ahead and identify his natural hairline from the front. And what do I notice about that natural hairline? It's at an angle, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a good amount of that, and I'm just gonna bring it down. Now the first thing I need to look at is, do I like the amount of weight that's sitting right there? Do I like it or no? I think this corner needs to be a little bit more filled in, no? It's empty right here. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna dissect a little bit more of this corner out. So now what do I feel about that? It's a lot better, right? Okay, if I like that, just so I can keep that in lock and in translation, I'm just gonna go ahead and isolate just this area. And isolate just that corner. Okay, and then everything on top, I'm gonna isolate as well. Okay, now easily, I have a guide to work with on the other side. So now I'm kind of in luck because I have a very easy guide to work with. I could just go ahead and draw the same guide out, but always hair is a visual process, right guys? I'm just gonna bring it down and see if I like that weight. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing and isolate just the top portion here. We're gonna isolate the fringe. Okay. So we'll work with 4 panels and we know what each purpose serves. This is the weight that's gonna be distributed in this corner. This is the weight that's gonna be distributed in this corner. And the top 2 sections are gonna be the weight distributed on top. So let's move in small sections, organize. Next guide through, we're gonna go ahead and distribute this section, just the panel on the sides. And same thing here, let's just go ahead and distribute this as the sections. And now what are we left with? Just the back. And why did I choose to start with the back? It's the most problematic area. So what do I know about the length at the bottom? Okay, I like it, but what do I know about the movement up top? It's too heavy. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and create a section straight through the middle. And because I want this to be a very lived-in haircut, I'm gonna use my feather razor, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pick up all of this hair, and I'm just gonna drop everything down from the occipital bone, and I'm just gonna check that weight right here. That's what I'm checking for. How do you guys feel? You like that density? I think we could use a little bit more, right? So we're just gonna grab a little bit more, pull it down, see how that lays. Better, right? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna tilt his head back, grab this guide, and we're just gonna go ahead and feather in all of this. So the first thing that you wanna do is you wanna go ahead and see how much weight you wanna keep in the back, because a lot of this length we're gonna keep, so we don't need to touch it. So once you identify the amount of weight that's gonna stay, you're gonna keep this area disconnected. So this area isn't gonna get touched. Now we're gonna ask our client, tilt our head slightly back. I'm gonna pick this layer up right here. And the end point needs to be this length. So this length actually can't be touched. Okay, so boom, we pull, and we're gonna go ahead and razor in until we reach that length. And all of this gets nice and wispy while all of this length stays. We're gonna move into our next guide on our right. Because this is gonna be more of a soft, layered haircut with a lot of movement, I'm gonna move horizontally round. So second guide is gonna come through. And now we actually have a guide to work with. I'm gonna pick that up, disconnect it at the same area as before. Okay, now we know where our end point is, and we're also gonna have a starting point once you check your guide. See that? So boom, that's your guide, moving nice and round. Pick that up. Okay. So now all of this gets nice and soft while all of this length at the bottom stays. Third guide in, and we're gonna start pivoting just slightly. Same thing, same disconnection, right at the occipital bone, goes in. This guide gets pulled. There's my guide, pure tension. Your last layer at that disconnection is gonna be your guide to stop. So it's gonna get longer and longer, and you're just gonna follow the previous guide that you started with. Okay, and then we're just gonna move in a round line. Okay, so same thing, boom. Okay, last guide through. We're just gonna finish that off. Okay, and let's just see the difference of both sides now. This side is very heavy, no movement, right? This side is very light, has a lot of movement. And that's how you're gonna do that with the feather razor and just create all that flow that you need. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. Occipital bone gets disconnected. Layer comes in through here. Same guide here, boom, push over. This gets picked up. See my guide, okay. Now it's more of like a flow state. I know exactly where that guide's ending because I've done so many reps of it at this point, right? Last guide through, boom. Check my guide, there's my guide. And as I transition down, I pull out. So now I have something very flowy that has a lot of movement, but the length is all the same. So length stays, weight disappears. Okay, we're gonna move into the sides and we're gonna do something very convenient. We have a guide that we can follow now. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a guide. First guide going into the sides, boom. Okay, vertical section straight down, and then boom. I'm gonna grab a little bit of the back in a round shape too, because I wanna transition this length over to this length. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab everything over and I'm gonna see what kind of length we're working with on the side here. And if you guys see, as I pull, see that guide? That's the guide I'm gonna use to cut into the sides. And what did I say about the sideburns? Okay, so I wanna keep the sideburns longer. So as I transition down, same thing on this, I'm gonna leave it longer. Next guide through, I'm still moving in a round line, but something's gonna change as I get to the back. To the side. I'm gonna keep the sides square. So my next guide through now, I'm gonna be over directing this section back to previous. So now this section gets pulled back to previous. Reason being, I need to keep a little bit of weight to match his jawline. Okay, so I'm thinking now. I'm starting to think a little bit. Boom. There is my beautiful guide. Everyone sees that? Transition beautifully into that length, and all that movement just stays. Last guide through, everything here gets over directed back to previous. Okay, so everything here gets pushed back. And same thing here, I pull, there's my guide. And guys, what do I have now? I have all this movement, but the length everywhere is what? The same. So let's do the same thing on this other side here. Okay, so boom, same thing here. We're gonna go ahead and push now. Where's my guide? All I'm looking for is my guide. Okay, there it is. Okay, as I transition down, what happens? Hair stays what? Longer. Second guide comes through. Everything stays forward. Okay, now this over directs back to previous. Last guide through. Okay, this guide goes into this guide. Okay, and all of this gets removed, but remember, we're keeping the sideburns alive. Now what do we have? Movement. We have a lot of this movement, just really accenting this look now. Now with all that movement here, We're gonna go ahead and start in the bangs. Okay, so we're gonna bring the bangs down and we're gonna just see what we're working with. And the goal is not to cut it too short. So because I don't wanna cut this too short and I need to keep this heavy, I'm gonna go ahead and one length this. I want the bangs to sit right where his eyebrows are, right here. So what do I need to do? So we're gonna go ahead and pull this down, right? And like I said, we need to keep this a little bit longer than where we want it because he has curly, wavy hair, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this down and I'm gonna keep the length slightly longer than where I want it, okay? Slightly longer than where I want it. Okay, slightly longer. Move slow, move with precision. And as I transition through this corner, I'm staying mindful of that weight because what do I know? His corners peak a little higher than the middle. Same thing on this side. You notice how I cut it below the eyebrows, but what happens? It sits exactly where I want it to be. That's why choice of length is so crucial when working with different hair types. What would have happened because I wanted to lay here and I cut it here? His hair would have been up here. Okay, and that would have looked completely ruined. Okay, so choice of length is everything when it comes to cutting hair. Same thing on this side. We're gonna pull everything down and we're just gonna follow that choice of length. Okay, trusting my technique. Go towards this side. Being mindful of that corner. And now I have something that's sitting exactly where I wanted it to be. Sitting perfectly where I envisioned it. So now we have one simple step. This is where people get excited, but this is where you need to slow down just a little bit because you still need to think. Okay, we're gonna remove the two clips and we're gonna go ahead and layer the top. I don't want it to be poofy up here and I want it to actually lose a little bit of this weight. So I'm just gonna go ahead and isolate just the middle here and create a guide. This guideline is gonna be crucial for the layers in the middle. Now I'm gonna pull this guide up and what's gonna happen here is gonna be a disconnection. Now what did we talk about disconnection yesterday? It's crucial, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab half of this out of the way and I'm gonna start here. And like I said, most people would start their cutting line here. Don't do that because all of this was one length for a reason. So this triangular line that you get through here was all one length. So you do it at the end of that disconnection, which is here. And because we were emphasizing so much texture and movement in this haircut, we're gonna follow that textured line. But watch what I do here. As I create this line, I'm actually going to move into more of a round shape as I get through the back. So what do I mean by a round shape as I get through the back? I'm gonna begin removing a little bit more of this weight to match it into my length in the crown. So I'm creating that blend and I'm trying to blend that length so it can match the length in the crown. So it goes no disconnection, no disconnection, then no disconnection to a little bit of disconnection and it falls over. Second guide, straight down, head down. Okay, boom. Okay, second guide comes in. Now I need to build a bit of a corner in the middle from the front. So what am I gonna do with this guide? I'm gonna over direct this back to previous. So since the guide is after me, I'm gonna pull into my guide. There's my guideline right there, okay? Now it's easy. I just trust my technique and I can move with pure intention. Third guide comes in. Now this third guide is gonna go into what? Previous, bingo. So boom, I pull back into my previous. There's my guide, and I just go in right away. So there's areas where we need to think a little harder when we're cutting hair, and there's areas where you can actually think a little less. This is more of an area where I get to kind of just trust my technique and go. What did I say about this last guide? Pull it all up, pull it all up. And whatever hasn't been touched, I touched. But in this case, there's not much, right? So this left side is finished now. And I just need to finish off this right side. Now what's cool about this right side now is that I can push. And I like pushing. Everyone's gonna have their own technique that they like more. I'm more of a push guy. So I like to push rather than pull. Pushing, checking my guide, and boom, creating my incision. One more time. We're pushing, checking my guide. Three goes into two. Okay, really simple, guys. We're able to move with this sort of confidence because I'm so sure about the technique that I chose to use in this case. And what do I say about the last guide? Okay, and whatever hasn't been touched gets cut. Boom. Top is done. Simple, simple, simple. I'm so sure that everything is supposed to lay exactly how I envisioned it because we cut with intention. But there's a big problem, guys. And this problem is gonna come in the way of our styling. And that problem actually is the disconnection that's from the top to the sides. And it's gonna create this heavy line that's gonna look really ugly when we style. So let's go ahead and identify that. Without any sections, I'm just gonna go ahead and create that flow. And I'm just gonna peek my comb under. I'm just gonna see where that disconnection is at. You guys see that? And there's a disconnection right there, right? Why do I decide to touch that up without like that instead of using pure tension? Harsh line, and with tension, I risk cutting too much. But with loose tension and a softer cutting line, I get to kind of preserve as much as I can. The idea is preserving now. This comes in, fringe gets separated, comb goes under. What do we see here? Slight, right? It's not heavy, it's slight. So now what we're gonna do is, before adding in any pre-styler, what is this look gonna look like at the end? You know, is it gonna look very strong? Is it gonna look very soft? Is it gonna look lived in? Like, what's the goal here? I want it to look lived in, right? I want it to look like he almost didn't even style it. It just looks like that. Okay, that's the goal of a lived in look. When I talk lived in, when I think lived in, I'm thinking of something that looks very natural to the client and something that almost looks so suitable to the point where he doesn't need to style it. Because that's my goal, I'm not gonna put any pre-styler into his look, okay? So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my Dyson. I'm gonna grab my Dyson and I'm gonna grab my diffuser. What is this diffuser gonna do for me? It's gonna give me more of this wavier, lived in look, okay? What would happen if I grabbed my vent brush and started brushing everything? If I went with my vent brush and I put an attachment on, it would give it a forced look, very strong look, right? But I don't want that. That's not the goal for this haircut. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my diffuser on. And now what do I know about diffusing wavy curly hair? High heat is gonna make it frizzy. So low heat, high power. And I think I want you guys to really take a close look at when I style hair. A lot of people think like, oh, okay, he's done with the haircut. I'm sure styling is kind of depends on how nice the guy's hair is, how I do everything, but you guys gotta look at the little movements that I make during my style that actually makes the whole style come to life. So as I style, right, I'm not just styling without intention. I'm looking, right? I'm styling, right? I'm styling, I'm taking a look, okay? I'm doing the same thing. I'm styling, I'm taking a look. Like, what is it that's going on with his hair? So what do I notice about this area that I diffuse the most? Texture is coming out, right? It's looking very soft. But what do I notice? It's starting to get slightly frizzy now, right? So I stop. Remember, I always move with intention, and if something already looks good, I'm not gonna touch it even more. What am I really starting to understand as I style his look? His hair already has a lot of movement, but another thing I realize is that his hair is already so soft. I want you to feel how his hair feels naturally. Soft, right? There's not much weight. So what does this mean? I don't need to soften it. When something already feels so soft and everything I do, it's doing, why would I need to go in and soften it even more? Softening is when it feels heavy. It needs to feel a certain way for me to make a decision. Right now, it's feeling soft, so I don't need to soften a look like this. Always move with intention. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm just really seeing what it is that I've created. Seeing the shape of things, seeing how his hair naturally wants to sit, and I'm noticing that his hair has a lot of good movement to it. You guys see all that movement? Now it's time to go ahead and polish his haircut up and style it up. Okay, so what am I gonna polish first? I noticed one thing in the back, guys. I noticed that his nape is not sitting very well. You guys notice that? See that? It looks a little too messy, no? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and soften a little bit of that weight off until it is sitting to my liking. I might even just tap just at the ends, just a little bit. Okay, at the ends. Now, the second thing I'm gonna do is I notice there's a little bit of weight right here. So anywhere that I notice a little bit of weight in, because I know the externals haven't been touched, I'm just gonna go ahead and touch up now. This is kind of my chance to polish up the areas that I haven't been able to touch up until this point. So same thing on this side. I notice a little bit of weight in this corner right here, and I know this hasn't been touched, so this is my time and chance to go ahead and bring that to life. Okay, and what else do I notice? I notice a little bit of hairs at the bottom of the neckline, which I'll do at the end. And now what I'm doing is I'm really just going into areas, and I'm gonna pick it up, and I'm seeing how this texture lays. If this feels too long, I'm moving more by eye now. If I don't like a certain area, I'm just gonna pick up, cut it. Okay, I'm going completely visual. Visual process is gonna create a visual outcome. Okay, same thing here. Okay, visual. Everything is visual now. See how his bangs sit? Like how everything's sitting overall. Okay, with the neck hairs in the back, all I'm doing is this. I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up. Up. I'm gonna add a little bit of cream, a little bit of styling cream. This is Texture Paste by Masons. I'm just gonna give him a very rough style. I don't want something too harsh just yet. Okay, I wanna see how his hair naturally reacts to this pomade. I'm going little by little because his hair is very soft and it's very delicate now. Okay, one wrong move with the styling and it could completely ruin my style. Okay, so I'm moving with a lot of intention now. How would it look when it's ruined? If the hair looks clumpy, if the hair looks like it's lacking texture, if it's lacking that softness, right? That's when it would look ruined. Because honestly, before I even put this product on, I was already liking how it was looking. So I'm being very careful now because I'm polishing this look with styling, but it's not the more I touch, the better it gets. It's the little areas and the little tweaks I make that are gonna make this look perfect, right? So I'm not really trying to create the biggest definition anywhere. Rather, I'm just trying to create the best look possible on him. And you guys see, not every mod has to be styled with the bangs coming down, right? Notice how naturally, when I flared the bangs up, it looks way more suitable on him. So I think right now it's all about suitability and how he's able to wear this haircut. And I want him to genuinely feel confident in his own look. And I want him to feel like this is the haircut that he's been wanting to get. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, because I like where this is going with the styling, I'm not gonna put too much product into it anymore. Rather, I'm gonna use my little comb right here to finish off the edges. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish this look off with some hairspray. All right, guys, we have our final look on Yoshi here today. And like I said, before we jump into the final looks of this model, we went with a very natural, lived-in shag / mod. And I feel like the idea of lived in is huge in this haircut because I don't want to give him a look that he can't rock right when he gets home on the next day without product. So I want to give him a look that's wearable on the daily, but also very suitable on him, right? I think the idea of lived in is when Yoshi can go home, come back from the gym, wash his hair, and it'll just naturally be worn exactly the way he wants. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Go ahead and give this a try on your clients, on a mannequin head, whatever it is. But this is a really, really trending look in 2025. 2025 is the year of lived in. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys on the next one.